In the high-speed world of Formula One, Roland Ratzenberger was a rising talent like no other. From humble beginnings, he defied his fate and carved his way into the world of motorsport with sheer hard work and dedication. But on April 30th, 1994, during the San Marino Grand Prix, tragedy struck, and the world of motorsports lost one of its promising racers. Join us as we cover the life of Roland Ratzenberger, from his early struggles to his chilling final moments, which remains Formula One's biggest what-if stories till this day. Roland Ratzenberger was born on July 4th, 1960, in Salzburg, Austria. He spent his early life with his grandmother, who used to take him to watch the local Hillclimb races at Gaisberg. And this experience ignited his interest, or one would say passion, in racing. But Roland's journey into the world of motorsport was far different from other typical racing driver stories. In fact, being born into a middle-class family, his parents wished him to pursue studies and get a stable job. However, in 1969, everything changed when the ultra-fast Salzburging opened up near his home. His parents later said in an interview that they never gave him money to buy tickets for the races, where he used to sneak in through the fence just to get some glimpse of the running cars. And it was there he got the first-hand look at what it meant to be a racer. It wasn't long before he came home running and announced that this is what he really wanted to do. Even though his parents were against his decision, Roland stayed firm to his goal, and in 1976, he joined go-karting club at the age of 16, where he had to do a secondary job at the bakery to afford the expenses of the club. In 1978, his parents urged him to get a job, where he reportedly started working as a mechanic at Walter Lechner's racing school. And this one would say worked in his favor, as during the period of 4 years, he gained valuable experience and honed his skills by driving the cars he worked on. Here, he also received a funny nickname, Roland the Rat, comparing him to a famous British television puppet character. In 1983, Walter, who was watching Roland work for years, realized his passion for cars and offered him a life-changing opportunity to race at Formula Ford. And just a couple of years later, in 1985, he made a name for himself by triumphing in both Austrian and Central Formula Ford Championship. Not stopping there, in the same year, he transitioned to British Formula Ford Festival and secured a position on the podium, which further solidified his status as one of the most promising talents in the world of motorsport. And by the end of that year, Roland had secured a total of 11 Ford Formula wins out of 19. Interestingly, he gained more fame due to his funny nickname, where he got invited by the Roland Rat to make a guest appearance on TVAM. In the years that followed, Roland competed in multiple races, such as British Formula 3000, British Touring Car Championship, and Le Mans 24 Hours. According to his family and friends, Roland was fueled with incredible passion to reach Formula One someday. However, the financial stress of competing in the F1 proved to be more than he could afford, which led him to move to Japan in 1990. And this decision marked as the new step in his career where he emerged as the force to be reckoned with by winning multiple races, such as the Japanese Sports Prototype Championship in both 1990, 1991, and Formula 3000 series. With these remarkable achievements in the bag, Roland finally started searching for potential sponsors, which could get him in the Formula One. And it wasn't long before in 1994 his hard work finally paid off, when a wealthy German woman, Barbara Balaw, offered him a 5-race contract in her Simtek team. Roland had a rough start to the season, where he failed to qualify in his debut race due to some technical errors in his car. However, many believe this only fueled his hunger even further for the next race at the Pacific Grand Prix at Japan. Having raced for so many years in the country, Roland had a deep understanding of the tracks, and this indeed helped him during the race, where he finally finished in 11th place. San Marino Grand Prix would have been Roland's 3rd race into the season, but tragically, he couldn't have foreseen the fate that awaited him just a few days later. On April 29, 1994, during the first day of qualifiers, Roland arrived at Imola in his Porsche, which reportedly he had bought thanks to the money saved up from his earlier races in Japan. For some unknown reason, his sponsor, Barbara, decided to show up at Imola after being away from the previous 2 races. Rumor has it that she was thinking of extending Roland's contract for a few more races because of his previous performance. And this would have come true if not for Roland's difficulty during qualifiers. Minutes into the session, Roland seemed to be struggling while taking turns, which he later stated was because of some technical issues in the brakes. And this was further confirmed when his teammate, David Brabham, who was more experienced that time, drove his car to check the brakes. However, later that day, tragedy struck at the course, where the Jordan driver Ruben Barrichello hit the curb at around 140 miles an hour. And although he didn't face any major injuries after the crash, it was a reminder for Roland of how deadly the sport could be. Just the next day, on April 30th, during the second qualifiers, Roland seemed quiet and distant, which many believe because of the horrific crash he witnessed yesterday. In fact, some of the people who were present there couldn't help but to notice an eerie feeling surrounding the air, as if something horrifying was about to take place. Undeterred, Roland ran the final checks on his car and resumed the second qualifiers with a clear goal of making it to the grid. And this seemed totally possible, since Ruben was out of the picture. Plus, the total number of races were cut down to 25, which meant he had to beat only one racer, Paul Belmondo, to make it in the grid. Just a few minutes into the session, Roland found himself in the battle against time, where, according to his teammates, he had a strong start. However, unbeknownst to him, the car had sustained minor damage during the previous lap at a 180-degree turn, which is more commonly known as Tosa hairpin. And although he could have just played safe and got the car checked after the lap, Roland decided to continue the session. As he headed to the Villeneuve corner, due to the high downforce, the front wing broke completely and lodged under the car. In that split moment, Roland couldn't control the car and crashed into the concrete wall at terrifying speed, where the wreckage traveled up to 300 yards near Tosa hairpin. The video and images captured during the fatal crash revealed the collision force which completely wrecked Roland's car. Everyone in the paddock was just waiting that Roland would just walk out of his car. But as the time passed, Roland had not gotten out of his car, and it was clear something horrifying had happened. The rescue team and paramedics swiftly arrived at the crashed car and pulled Roland out. However, even after countless attempts to revive him, Roland seemed unconscious and unresponsive. Not wasting any time, he was then transported to the Imola Circuit's medical center and further to Maggiore Hospital, where he was pronounced dead at the age of 33. The moment I saw the crash, I knew I had lost my teammate, David Babram later said in an interview. The initial reports from the medical spokesperson indicated that Roland had suffered multiple fatal injuries, where basilar skull fracture was determined to be the primary one. In fact, it was the same injury that claimed the life of NASCAR legend Dale Earnhardt and many racers later. The circumstances were harrowing, where Roland's car slammed into the concrete wall at around 195.7 miles per hour. And on top of that, the head and neck support device, which is more common today, was not mandatory back in that time, which one would say could have increased the possibility of survival. Further reports into the crash revealed that the force Roland experienced during the impact was around 500 G, which was in fact the highest ever recorded in F1 history. To put it in perspective, it's the same force one would experience while crashing the spacecraft at full speed. In fact, even 1 second exposure to such force would be enough to crush a human body. Upon further investigation of the car, it was concluded that Roland was accelerating very hard at the 6th gear, when the part of the car which was later revealed to be the front wing detached from the body. The experts believed that this could have been caused because the 2 or 3 bolts which were attached in underside of the front wing might have become loose upon first impact at Tosa hairpin. Roland's death was in fact the first fatality during a Grand Prix weekend in over a decade, which weighed heavily at the paddock, particularly for the Brazilian rising talent Ayrton Senna. He watched the incident unfolding from the paddock and quickly reached the hospital where he learned about the news from the neurosurgeon Sid Watkin. Looking at Senna's mental condition, Sid suggested that he skip tomorrow's race and go somewhere fishing, which arguably could have saved him from the tragedy that was about to unfold. On May 1st, 1994, during the race day, Ayrton decided to pay tribute to Roland Ratzenberger by carrying an Austrian flag on his car. And although he planned to make it even more memorable by winning the race, fate had other plans. Tragically, on the 7th lap, Senna's car crashed to the concrete barrier at around 140 miles per hour, resulting in his death. Many believe that Roland's tragic death was, in some ways, overshadowed by the passing of Ayrton Senna, thanks to the remarkable achievements he'd earned throughout the years. And although both men had lost their lives chasing the same dream on the same circuit, the world's attention naturally gravitated towards Senna. In fact, while almost every active Formula One driver attended Senna's funeral, only a handful were present at Roland's, including FIA President Max Mosley. A few days after the funeral, Max received a negative impression for not attending Senna's funeral. Roland had been forgotten. Somebody from F1 had to go there, and everyone else was with Senna, he said in his statement. Months after the accident, Roland's parents moved to his apartment just to keep their son's memories alive. The apartment remains frozen in the past, with trophies he gathered throughout the relentless years in the junior ranks across Japan, Germany, and England. Weeks later, they visited Imola, where they stood at the place where their son lost his life. "It still feels heavy," they said in the broken voice. He was arguably the rising talent in the F1 world and could have been a great racer if not for the tragedy. Unfortunately, the story ended far too soon, leaving audiences with one single thought: what if? So if this story inspired you or gave you something to think about and want to watch more like this, then don't forget to check the rest of our channel. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button so that you never miss any future uploads from us. That's all for today, and we will see you in the next video.